Renewable energy use in Bitcoin mining exceeds 50%. Jordan Peterson suggests Bitcoin over banks. And is the iPhone 15 really worth it? Let's get into it. Renewable energy use in Bitcoin mining exceeds 50%. So Bitcoin is usually criticized for its high energy consumption, but a new report by Bloomberg suggests otherwise. So the market analyst at Bloomberg, Jamie Coots, challenged the narrative and showed that Bitcoin mining is becoming more environmentally friendly. So according to Coots, the use of renewable energy sources in Bitcoin mining has surpassed 50% for the first time. Miners shift to less fossil fuel incentive regions and adopt more sustainable solutions such as off-grid power and gas flare. So this trend has also resulted in a decrease in carbon emissions from Bitcoin mining, even as the hash rate of the network, which measures the processing power of miners, has increased. So there's the chart kind of suggesting where it was at in 2022 and where it's at this year in 2023. So as you can see, the coal is obviously a lot less. Gas has dropped a little bit as well. And obviously hydro is becoming quite a big one. Wind has increased a lot as well, more in solar. So it's definitely a positive. I think the one thing that always escapes the conversation is, yes, Bitcoin uses up power and, it's becoming more environmentally friendly using these more sustainable kind of power sources. But also with the introduction of Bitcoin mining, the investments going into this renewable energy, like wind and hydro, has increased tenfold, because obviously the investments you would usually just rely on government schemes or the government itself directly, whereas now obviously private companies like mining companies are investing in renewable energies directly because it directly benefits them, not just in the long term but the short term as well, because if they can get cheaper energy they make more profits from the Bitcoin they mine. So without crypto there'd actually be a lot less investments into renewable energy than there is now. And I think because obviously Bitcoin mining especially is starting to become more green, the offset of which the energy it uses and the investments it's making into renewable energies is becoming more of a positive as well. It's increasing, so it's actually more environmentally friendly to have Bitcoin than not to have Bitcoin exist, because without it, less investments would go into renewable energy. So it says here, the analysis estimates that since China's mining ban in mid-2021, which caused a temporary drop in the hash rate, emissions from Bitcoin mining have decreased by 37.5%, while the hash rate has recovered and quadrupled. So yeah, more power being used, but obviously a lot of that power is now being sourced from renewable energy sources. Obviously, like in the chart suggests, wind and hydro is the two of the biggest that have increased. So yeah, BTC mining could also reduce the cost of using wind and solar energy. So again, companies that aren't mining Bitcoin already, they can use these renewable energy sources, and any of the kind of energy that would usually be lost because it's not needed at that current time, they could set up mini kind of mining rigs so that energy would go into would be used for something, which would obviously be Bitcoin mining or maybe another crypto, another proof of work crypto, and then the profits earned from that can be used to make their energy bills cheaper, because they can use the profits to pay for a percentage of it, essentially. So here it says, what is becoming more apparent is that switching away from coal for wind and solar often requires incentives and involves suboptimal returns early in the life cycle of power plants. But Bitcoin mining as a source of revenue from excess energy can support this transition. So yeah, if you're using renewable energy at the moment and you're having energy times where you're not using all that energy up, you can set up maybe a small Bitcoin mining rig to use up that kind of spare energy you have that would usually be lost to mine Bitcoin, and then the profit you make from that you can use to kind of make your energy bill essentially cheaper, because you've got more money coming in to use to pay for it. And if some of you remember, back in 2021, Elon Musk stopped Tesla accepting Bitcoin because of the obviously, the FUD of it being not environmentally friendly, which goes against the kind of whole electric car stance. So and he said once it exceeds 50%, they'll start accepting Bitcoin again as payment. So now that it has, everyone's waiting for Elon Musk to pipe up and make the decision to accept Bitcoin again for Tesla, which would be, I think, in the current market we're in this kind of bear market, it probably wouldn't shift the price that much. I think it would probably spike maybe 1 or 2%, but if he comes out and says, yeah, accepting again in the bull run, maybe next year, the year after, then it would probably have a much more bigger effect, because people were just, hyped up from the euphoria of any sort of bull market or bull movement. So Jordan Peterson suggests it's time to scrap banks and use Bitcoin. So Jordan Peterson is kind of a well-known Bitcoin enthusiast now. He's spoke at the last Bitcoin Miami conference. He's made it quite public that he likes the idea of Bitcoin. So it says here, his tweet sparked a debate on September 14th about the unbanking movement and Bitcoin being a tool to scrap banks. So Peterson's post was made in response to Australian news regarding Macquarie's bank's branches moving to scrap cash, check, and phone payment services. So another bank in Australia that wants to scrap kind of cash, checks, phone payments, things that they can't really oversee and control as much as they'd like. And he wrote, it's time to scrap banks. Could Bitcoin fix this? It just says here, in most European countries, the use of cash is already limited to smaller transactions, and Nigerian banks also have low cash withdrawal limits on their ATMs. Interestingly, the Canadian doctor had already demonstrated a will to use Bitcoin as a facilitator for global monetary transactions, and was later introduced to Lightning Network custodial wallets by Joe Nakamoto in order to receive borderless donations instead of using the fiat-based GoFundMe services. So he's using it to accept donations and things like that. So that some people kind of obviously, backed his tweet up, and then some people said, oh no, it won't, it's not realistic because Bitcoin only supports 7 transactions per second, whereas CBDCs support like 1.7 million and things like that. But to counter that, layer 2s obviously increase that by a lot. So you have the Lightning Network that I think supports about 1 million transactions per second, but you have to remember Bitcoin is only 15 years old nearly, and the banking system has been around for a long time, too long, some would say. And give Bitcoin that same amount of time, and I guarantee it will work much more efficiently than how the banking system works now, and definitely with a lot less fraud as well, and people taking advantage of the middle guy or the little guy, or however you want to see it and look at it. But decentralization is definitely the way forward for people that want to have custody over their own assets that they've worked hard to achieve and gain. So it makes sense. I understand where this guy's coming from, but with more time, Bitcoin, I think in another 15 years time, Bitcoin will easily be, with some layer 2s on top, it will easily surpass what the banks can do and CBDCs can do. Who wants CBDCs anyway? It's that's never going to be a good thing. Again, is Bitcoin going to take over banks? I still think banks will exist, but I think Bitcoin will sit nicely in an area and fulfill a large portion of the financial market, because it will be in a moment of time where people do actually want something that they actually can own without the people, the powers that be, overseeing it, especially as things like that get worse as well as time goes on. I think Bitcoin won't replace banks, but it will definitely it will compete with them for sure. And the last topic for this video, if you bought Apple shares instead of iPhones, you'd now have $147,000. So it's just an interesting one here. So there's a tweet floating around saying that if you had bought Apple shares instead of an iPhone every time they came out, you have hundreds of millions of dollars. This kind of article suggests the math is slightly off because it suggests that you would have bought Apple stock before the announcement of the iPhone, the first iPhone. So if you're in the know, but obviously for a lot of people that wouldn't have been possible. So this one kind of adjusts the numbers a bit and makes it a bit more realistic. So yeah, they would claim you'd own $1.5 million if you'd, but a lot of that would come from the initial investment before the first iPhone. So they've just made it. So this article has changed the numbers, done it so if you'd have just bought the shares when the iPhones were released, when they became available for the public. So it says here, I figured a more fair way of calculating it would be to imagine buy a top-of-the-line iPhone every time Apple releases a new iPhone, or spend the same amount on Apple stock. If you had done that, by his calculations, you'd have spent around 16 grand on iPhones over the years. And if you'd bought Apple shares instead, you'd today have $147,000 or so, which would be a profit of 131,000. So this is Apple's stock price has rallied significantly since the launch of the original iPhone. And then this is a chart just saying, well, for when every iPhone came out and how much the stock would be. Also takes into consideration the stock splits as well, the share splits, and and just how much you would have made. And it's interesting really, and it's almost like you could almost take a strategy from it. So like every time you want to buy something, maybe as significant as an iPhone, something that is of quite high value, that you might buy, say maybe like once every year or once every 2 years, or maybe it's something you buy every 6 months or something, and maybe only buy it if you can afford not just the product itself, but the same value of shares of the company you're buying the product from. So, and obviously in this instance, say if you're buying the iPhone 15 this year, only buy it if you can afford to buy it, but also buy, what is it, $1,000? So you can, pay $1,000 for the iPhone, but also if you can afford to pay another $1,000 to pay for Apple, to buy Apple shares as well. Do that for the next 20 years, not just with Apple, but with other companies as well, and see how you get on. Especially if every time something comes out and there's always hype around that product, then you obviously know the company is is technically doing all right, because there's still demand for their stuff. Maybe if you get like say 10 years in and they've released say the iPhone 25 and there's not much hype around it anymore, then you probably know, okay, maybe it's time to sell some of these stocks because it's not looking too good. Going forward, if there's stuff that you buy regularly and there's a lot of hype around that product every time it comes out, then still buy the product if you want it, but also buy the same amount of value of stock as well from that company you're buying the product from. Yeah, it could be an interesting kind of way to invest really. I wanted to get a video out this week. It's a bit late on the upload, but I wanted to get it done. I'm going to be more organized next week and make sure I do my bits to prepare for the video beforehand so I can get it out I usually try and get it out on a Saturday. I know it's Sunday today. But yeah, I'm going to end it there so I can start the next one now, and hopefully it'll be a bit better quality for next time. But yeah, anyway, if you've watched till the end, I appreciate you. If you like this content, give it a like because it helps me out, and then maybe even subscribe as well because that would be very much appreciated. But that's me for now, and I'll see you in the next one.